So in this fight, we had Jack Hermansson, number five, taking on Sean Strickland. Jack Hermansson was six. Sorry, he was six, and Sean Strickland is ranked number seven. Sean Strickland was on a 5-fight win streak coming into this fight, and he got it done. Saul D'Amato was smoking something. I don't know what he was smoking, but it was some bad stuff that caused him to see the wrong thing, just incorrect in general. He had it 48-47 for Hermansson. That's just unacceptable. That's not okay. So the other two judges scoring it 49-46 for Strickland, which I believe is the right call here. So what did we see in this fight? A lot of, I would say, trepidation, a lot of jabs for sure. If you want to go ahead and look at the striking totals, significant strikes. They kept showing the numbers on during the fight. I'll tell you, they were not that far. They were not that one-sided. I understand that the counting strikes in the moment, they could get them wrong, but the significant strikes were way off. Right, they had Sean Strickland up like 150 significant strikes compared to like 88 coming from Jack Hermansson. That's just not correct. And if we look at the striking numbers round by round, they were relatively close. And I'll give you a breakdown in a second here. So Hermansson started with the low kicks pretty early on, and Sean was throwing out that jab nonstop. The first takedown attempt from Hermansson happened at 3:47 of the first round. I bring this up because the timing, one, it was a minute into the fight, and two, Sean kind of worked, like he eventually got down onto all fours while defending, but there wasn't really control. No damage was done by Hermansson. He effectively got 0 of 8, okay, total. Jack Hermansson went for 8 takedowns and got 0 of them. Sean Strickland held strong. And this started very early on, like I said, 1 minute into the fight. So Strickland looked really relaxed in there, and Hermansson looked a little bit more frenetic, a lot more, I could say high energy, but he was moving a lot more, and that's part of his style. But he also, with that, was throwing a lot of shots just out into the ether, not landing a ton of anything, to be honest with you. He's throwing a ton, like here, if you want to look at his totals, he threw 350 and landed 134 at distance. Total strikes, his significant strike percentage was 38%. We went over this last week. Striking percentage doesn't mean anything unless you land the same amount, and then we can discuss that later. But he just was very inaccurate with his striking. He was throwing a lot of stuff out there to try and get his distance, and he I don't know if distance was really the problem. It's just he was throwing a lot of shit at the wall, and nothing was sticking. The threat of the takedown, in my opinion, if you watch the fight, go back and watch the first few rounds where Strickland is more reserved, not throwing any kicks, and mainly staying up top. He looked kind of worried about the takedown attempts. Not that it changed his game plan that much. My guess is it probably changed it, 10%, if that, because obviously he knows he's going for the takedowns. It's just the worry of the takedown eliminated a lot of his offense, so he is just jab city, especially in the first couple of rounds. So another thing that I noticed is Strickland was using his right hand. Yes, yeah. So he was using his right hand to slap down the lead hand of Hermansson. So Hermansson, if he threw out a lazy jab or none of the hooks, but basically when he was extending with that left hand, like you would for a jab or maybe to get spacing, Strickland was slapping it down out of the way. I noticed that happened many times. And looking at the striking numbers from the first round, Hermansson winning the striking battle, it looked like I wrote down here while watching the fight. I was like, it looked dead even to me, but the grappling and clinch advantage went to Hermansson. So I don't have a problem giving him the first round. I think it's pretty damn close. In fact, my initial assessment of it seemed pretty dead on. I would give the first round to Hermansson. Hermansson started mixing it up and throwing out more in the initial phases of each round, and you could see this as the fight went on. He started for the first 30 seconds to 45 seconds of every round being very active, throwing a lot of big bomb looping shots and missing a lot of things, but he started breathing hard in the second round. Sean Strickland did not breathe hard the entire fight. Not that that means anything, because Hermansson stayed strong the entire fight with his output, but the damage output, I think, went in favor of Hermansson in the second round. Let's see. Strickland also looked a lot more particular about the shots that he was throwing. So he wasn't standing around and pausing, waiting for Hermansson to lead the dance necessarily. Like, he wasn't trying to just be a counterpuncher, but Strickland had this more deliberate striking style where he looked like he knew exactly what he wanted to do, and like he had a combination in his head, right? And he's like, I'm going to throw the 1-2 up top, throw another one, and then dig to the body. He threw that combo a few times. He threw big looping rights to the body quite a few times. He straightened him out a couple times too. But in the second round, Sean started to open up near the end of the round, and then he caught him with like a left hand or something, whatever. Anyway, Hermansson was off balance. There's 3 seconds left, and Hermansson falls on his ass. So not a good look, but, honestly, if I had to judge this round while I was watching it, I gave it to Strickland because of that last one. Like, yeah, it didn't land as far as, punching someone in the face, but pushing someone over also does damage, okay? And it was from a strike. And the striking numbers, as you can see here, 32-32, dead even. I would say the biggest moment of that round was him throwing Hermansson to the ground. That I have no problem. I am very confident in saying that he won that round. If you gave that round to Hermansson, I'm not mad. Right? Giving him 2 rounds is not unacceptable. Okay. Back and forth. Oh, yeah. So Jack started doing this thing where he was dipping down and leading with his left hook, throwing a lead left hook. I don't think it landed a single time. He was way too far out of range, and that's what I'm saying. Like, he was throwing these combinations like he was shadowboxing almost, right? Like shit you would do, in between sets at the gym, when you're just like throwing, or like, when these guys are taking video for the promos in the pre-fight stuff, where they're, in that lit room, the backlighting room, and they're all throwing shots like that at air. That's what it looked like Hermansson was doing sometimes, and it was kind of odd. Like, I understand that he wasn't doing that. I don't know what he was doing, because he didn't use that information going forward to make changes. He wasn't trying to lead his way in. I just didn't know. It looked really awkward. Maybe he was hoping he would catch Sean moving in. I don't know what led him to believe that would happen either. But anyway, the announcers were very in favor of everything Strickland was doing. I know they were. I don't think bias is the right word. I think they were partly leaning that way because the live striking numbers were so horrendously off. Okay, I think they were privy to those numbers, and unfortunately, those numbers were wrong, and therefore they were, swayed heavily into one direction. Plus, a lot of the damage Strickland was doing, if you could see here, 81% of it was to the head. A lot of head strikes. Whereas Hermansson did most of his work to the body and to the legs. Now, this isn't to say I don't think Strickland lost this third round. I think, they went pretty equal on damage, and I went the way of Strickland. I went the way of Strickland because I felt like he did more damage. They were pretty equal on damage, and then with 1:15 left, like Strickland seemed to do more. So, again, 27-26 on the striking numbers, not a blowout here. And I could, this whole thing where maybe Saul D'Amato saw those first 3 rounds for Hermansson. I guess good on him for noticing that the strikes were even. But if you were watching the significant strikes, I think Strickland's were more significant. And because he did, and even if they were exactly the same amount of significance, right? Position means almost nothing because of how close this fight was. Sorry. If the position were significant in one way or the other, it would matter, but it didn't. And in this third round, Strickland does outland him, and I felt like he landed the more significant strikes in round 3. So there we go, another round for him. So I had, going into the championship rounds here, I had it 29-28 for Strickland. Okay, winning the second and the third round. The first round, clearly Hermansson's for me. Second round, I could be convinced that Hermansson won it. Third round is where I say no. Fourth round, another outpoint round by Sean. Strickland just did more he just did more in this one. Okay, constantly touching him, doing more damage. Easy round for him. We don't need to go into it. And then in the fifth and final round, Hermansson, despite looking more tired, like I said earlier, he continued to have a greater output. His output in the fifth round was his greatest one of all 5. If you can see here, he threw 83 significant strikes. His output actually went up every single round. Now, he didn't land more. He landed essentially the same amount of strikes every single round, the round 2 being the outlier being 32. But 26, 32, 26, 27, 26. He was very consistent with how many he landed. It's just that Strickland upped his accuracy in these last 2 rounds, allowing him to pull ahead on the numbers. And that's where you get, 4 rounds to 1 in favor of Strickland. I'm in favor of these last 2 rounds going to Strickland, giving the first round to Hermansson, maybe the second. Either way, Saul D'Amato is high. There's like I said, there's a way you can convince me that the first round and the second round went to Hermansson. I'm not going to reiterate that, but to tell me that the first, second, and third from the same guy all went to Hermansson for the exact same reason, you're out of your fucking mind. Because the first round was grappling. That's what made the difference. Yeah, the striking numbers were in his favor too, but really it was the grappling. Second round, they were dead even. And if you don't count that, that's where I'm saying, the most significant thing that happens is Hermansson gets thrown to the ground. So you're going to tell me you saw that going Hermansson's way as well. Did you close your eyes in that last part? And then round 3, where the striking, again, was pretty dead even, but Strickland led the dance more often than not. But, I understand the output was greater from Hermansson. And this is what I'm saying, though, when it comes to output. If you have a greater output, it could sway the judges in your direction if the judge isn't paying attention to the right things. Anyway, I thought it was a relatively interesting fight, more because of the implications of the fight and less about the actions, because let's be honest, I don't think there was a single time, if you watch this fight, I don't know if you thought that at any moment there should have been or there could have been a finish. I don't think we were 10 punches away from a finish at any point in this entire fight. Nobody got close to a submission, obviously, because it never, not because it never went to the ground, but it's unlikely for a standing submission. It's the compelling nature of this fight was because of the outcome and what that means for the division going forward, and not so much for this fight. Because, like I said, it wasn't boring. I didn't hate watching it, but, I found myself waiting for a thing to happen. It just never did. Okay. So where does this put Sean? I think the easiest answer is he switches spots with Jack Hermansson. He could pull ahead at Costa because Costa's playing this bullshit game. God, I love Fresca. Okay. You guys, if you've watched me before talk about Paulo Costa, you know my feelings on him. I don't like his attitude. I don't like his team. I don't like the way he fights. I don't you guys want to talk about how exciting he is. He's not. He's had a bunch of stinkers. When he's beating up on older veterans or people who he's way bigger than it's interesting, or against the one guy, the one interesting fight he had. Ever since then, it's been stinkers. Wait, has it been 2 fights since? It doesn't matter. I don't like the guy. His excuses drove me up the wall. I can't believe that anybody's a fan of him, period. Right? Regardless of whether or not you think he's put on interesting fights, the fact that you could be a fan of that attitude, blaming the wine, lack of sleep, not eating right. Oh, I was injured this, I didn't feel right that. And not only did he like not even come close to making weight for the Vettori fight, he just told him like, whoa, 10 pounds. Let's make it 20 since we're that close anyway. Like, get the fuck out of here. He's a piece of shit. I can't stand that crap. And I think a lot of that has to do with his manager feeding him bullshit in his ear. So now he's saying, oh, I want to rematch Vettori because the guy's full of shit. Like, dude, you just lost to him in convincing fashion when in a fight where you didn't even try to make weight. Get the fuck out of here. Like, I don't care what circumstances led to that. That's not how this works. And because of that, and him saying like, oh, I'm going to test the free agency after my next fight, and my next fight is with Vettori. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if the matchmakers threw Strickland in at 5 and then coasted down to 6 and Hermansson down to 7. But what do I think for title shot implications here? So if Jared Cannonier beats Brunson in their upcoming fight, I think Jared Cannonier just coming off of a loss. I don't think he gets a title shot from that. I think he probably fights someone like Vettori, maybe the loser of Whitaker, Adesanya, that kind of stuff. If Brunson wins, and he has losses to both the guys fighting for the title in Whitaker, Adesanya, so there is a compelling storyline there. Plus, he's been on a tear. I think Brunson, how many fights in his last, let's see here. 1, 2, 3. Oh, good grief. Come on. Yeah, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fights in a row. So he's on a big win streak, and that's the kind of that's the kind of shit that gets you a title shot. Especially there's a compelling storyline that he lost to these two and he's changed, right? So there's a chance, the whole blonde Brunson thing. I like Derek Brunson. I'm not gonna begrudge him and say that he needs to keep fighting. I think if he does get the win, he deserves a title shot. If he doesn't, and Jared Cannonier gets the win, he doesn't necessarily deserve it more than Sean Strickland, who's currently on a 6-fight win streak, just beating the number 6 guy in the world. He leapfrogs Costa, Marvin Vettori, just too recent. I don't know if I think he needs one more win. So based off of how the Brunson-Cannonier fight goes, I think that'll determine whether or not Sean Strickland gets a title shot. In my opinion, I think Strickland should get it if Brunson doesn't win. If Brunson does win, then Brunson should get it. Cannonier maybe takes on Strickland. Or maybe we have Vettori versus Strickland. That'd be fun. Yeah.